Welcome to the Plant Fit Summit, bringing you the best in plant-based health and fitness. This is Luke and Toby, and today we have Josh Lajaunie. Josh tipped the scales at 400 pounds in 2011. Since then, he has lost over 200 pounds through a shift in his mindset and adopting a whole foods, plant-based diet. He now travels as a motivational speaker and competes as an ultra runner. Today, we chat about how you can redefine your identity and how finding a deep why can propel you to success you never thought possible. We start the conversation diving straight into Josh's story. Enjoy the presentation.
I'm from South Louisiana. I know that you guys are a long ways away from me, but in South Louisiana, we have a certain way of doing things. We have a certain way of living, and a lot of that is revolves around, hunting and fishing. And while you're doing those activities, lots of beer drinking, lots of gluttonous eating. And I'm not hating on any of that. It's just I recognize it as a cause that precipitated certain results in my life. Living that lifestyle and identifying as a big man, because I also played football my whole life. So being big wasn't a bad thing. My grandfather was a 380-pound man my whole life. So he's the patriarch of the family. So being big wasn't a bad thing. I was actually wanted to be like him, right? So living that lifestyle and having that identity led me down a path where I found myself. The biggest number I saw actually on the scale was 397 pounds. But that was because I was weighing on a scale that didn't work. It wouldn't go high enough. And by the time I bought a scale that showed me that number, 397 pounds, I had already been in the gym for 40 days or so. And I know good and well, I was a good 405, 410 in that area. Because I'm 6'4", I'm a big guy, 6'3 and a half, 6'4". I'm a big guy, and I wore a size 54 waist, jeans, 62 long jacket, just a big guy. And that's where I was. That's where I found myself at the end of 2010, early 2011. And at the same time, I was going back to school and getting my degree I started as a freshman all over again because I flunked out of school after I got hurt playing football, and when you were supposed to go to college, right? And so I went back to school as a 29-year-old freshman, starting all over again. I found myself in 2011 as a 33-year-old man on his way to finally finishing, a 32-year-old man on his way to finally finishing up his degree. And I was very self-conscious about how I was going to look in a suit. I didn't want to have to tuck in my shirt for the world to see my belly, because you have to make this decision as a fat guy. Am I going to put my belt and my pants under my big belly, or am I going to wear my pants up high like an old man and have my belly inside my pants, right? It was just wrecking me because I knew the material. I wasn't worried about standing in front of people and talking. I had really done well in my public speaking classes, but I was always able to wear my shirt untucked and my collar unbuttoned, sort of a business casual thing, right? But I knew that my capstone course at the end of 2011 was going to require me to wear business attire. I needed to put on a suit. I needed to tuck in my shirt. I needed to wear a tie. Not only was I at least 200 pounds heavier than everyone in my class, I was also 10 years older. So I was really sort of embarrassed about, and it was a shame because I knew the material. I was an honor student the whole time I was going back to school as this non-traditional student. I was proud of what I was accomplishing and wrapping up, and all of that didn't match how I felt about myself physically. So early 2011, a friend of mine just very serendipitously called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, bro, I'm joining the gym. You want to come be my partner?" And boom, that's where it started. I was like, yes, I don't want to be fat. I want to start doing something about how I feel, about how I look. And so that's where it started. 2011, February 2011, we got in the gym, and I just started doing the old school stuff, getting in the gym, doing 3 sets of 10, like my old football workouts. And my idea of progress then was I want to get back up to my bench press and my squat and all of that stuff from my football days. And I wanted to get down to playing weight, which was about 290 for me, right? And I was like, if I can, as a 30-something-year-old dude, because I had crossed over that threshold of 30, as a 30-year-old dude, if I could get back to the size that I was when I felt like an athlete most, which was when I was around that 290 area playing defensive line, and I felt like a big dancing bear at that weight. So in my mind, when I first started, if I could just get back under 300 pounds and get my bench press up, I would feel better about myself. I'd just be a beast again. And as I started doing that and started working at that, that's just the first domino that fell. I started getting in the gym and doing those things, and then doing all the whey proteins and going to GNC and buying the big buckets of stuff and doing the whole bit, right? And through the summer of 2011, now that I'm a graduating senior, I had learned to do something different. I had learned to seek facts. I had learned to read and be more pragmatic about my approach to a given problem, right? And so I kind of took myself on as a case study in 2011, and I started flirting with the idea of implementing some more cardiovascular type workouts because of some articles I had read in Runner's World magazine and in Men's Health and Men's Fitness, one of those. And so I learned a lot about running and how running was a real good fat burning exercise. And so I started dabbling in that. I started after my weight workout, I would get on the treadmill or get on the elliptical and do those things. But as my my cardio sessions started to go further and further, and I started to do longer and longer efforts on the treadmill, I'm still 380-ish pounds at this point. You got to remember 350 to 380. And I'm on this treadmill trying to run a 12-minute mile, which was this poor treadmill, you could smell the motor burning, right? And so after about 10 minutes, the treadmill would just quit on me. And that just accidentally forced me outside. And so I started to go outside and do some running and just go from telephone pole to telephone pole at a jog and then walk from telephone pole to telephone. And I just did that for a mile at a time after my workouts. And then that slowly grew into something because I was starting to feel results. By the time graduation came at the end of 2011, which was December 2011, I had lost about 60 pounds. And I was like, yes, this is amazing. This is working. This is great. And I was really proud of how I looked at graduation. I was getting compliments from all of my professors and my classmates. There's a local state representative who works out at the gym who happened to be on stage when I walked across the stage to graduate, who complimented me at that moment. And I was like, this feels good. This feels good. I'm on the right track. And in a big part of being on the right track was this new thing that I was doing that I used to hate called running. Right? I used to hate it as a big football player. I hated it. I would sprint from here to there to be able to knock the hell out of you. But that was as far as I wanted to run. I didn't want to run distance, And so I was starting to kind of dig this stuff. At the same time, I'm in love with the city of New Orleans. I'm a huge Saints fan. And so me and my wife have season tickets, and we spend a lot of time in the city because we have an apartment in the city for when we go to Saints games, and we can bring our dogs and everything, and so we don't have to worry about hotel room and all that stuff. And I would go there on the weekends, and I would see these people just running all over the place, running up and down St. Charles Avenue, running up and down Magazine Street and around Lakeshore Drive, and I was just, I want that. I want to be able to cover distance and go explore this city that is so dear to me that I love. I want that one day. And I just so happened that at the end of 2011, around the time of graduation, the thought entered my mind as I'm running with my buddy who sort of asked me to be his training partner. I'm running at like a 15-minute pace, and he's kind of walking beside me as I'm doing my running. But I called it a jiggle jog. But anyway, as it was a lot going on, bro. You could hear clapping and flapping all over the place. But I was doing it, right? And we started to build up our distance, and I got to the point to where every now and then my long run would reach out past 2 miles. And then we got to the point to where I could do 3 miles. And I saw a Crescent City Classic advertisement, right? And I was like, bam, I can participate in being a New Orleanian, like a New Orleans runner. Like, this is a cool way for me to participate in a city that's different than oyster po' boys or whatever. Even though I was still eating those things at the time, this was just a new thing in the fold of me kind of pretending to be a New Orleanian, even though I'm from Thibodeau, right? And so I really started to kind of dig it. And I mentioned the idea of potentially maybe one day signing up for this 10K to my buddy Jeff. And he was like, dude, we could totally do it. You run 3, and then we could just walk the last 3 if you have to. And so that he kind of encouraged me, and I was like, okay. So I signed up, and it was all over from there. We started, and so in April 2012, I had lost even more weight by that point. I had gotten down to like 325 in that area, between 320 and 330. And again, like I was telling y'all earlier, I felt light on my feet. I was ready to get some, And so we did that. I started falling apart halfway through, kind of like how we expected. And then I just kind of jogged to the finish. And lo and behold, getting that under my belt put me in love with running. Like, it kicked my ass. It really did. But there was something rewarding about it. There was, and not only about me, but about being around all these people. There was a certain sense of community to it, right? And so I really enjoyed it, and I wanted to honor it by doing it better. And so the next year, I committed to getting in under an hour, right? And my wife jumped in with me, and then she started running with me. And so we trained together, and that next year we'd get in under an hour. By the time that happened, I had lost about 100 pounds, okay? And I was feeling pretty accomplished, but I was noticing at that 100-pound mark. So here I am getting to that goal weight of 300 pounds like I had set for myself in the beginning. And I was noticing, though, even with all of this running, my approach to food was not working out, because I was really starting to plateau. As a 400 and something pound guy, you don't have to change a whole lot to just lose weight, because that default calorie burn in a given day is really, really high. But as I started to lose weight, that default calorie burn started to wane, and my running was having less effect on me losing the body fat. And so around that time, a buddy of mine, for a completely different reason than potentially turning me vegan, he's turned me on to this book called Born to Run. And he told me about the book, and because at the time I was a heavy drinker, and we partied, stayed up late, and his take on the book was, dude, there's this book about these Indians that take hallucinogenics and drink beer and get wasted and gorge on stuff the night before, and then they haul ass and run these big races. And I was like, that's why I read the book, because they were party animals and ran. So that's what got me there. But I learned about Scott Jurek in that book, because here I am around that same time of me getting under an hour in that 10K. Around that very same time, I'm starting to flirt with the idea of a half marathon, which seems overwhelming to me. And that's a half marathon. So the only thing I knew that existed beyond that was a full marathon. And I'm reading this book, and I'm reading about people running hundreds of freaking miles and 135 miles through bad through Death Valley and the battle 135, and here's this dude crushing stuff and winning Western states year after year after year, crushing Badwater, and he's a vegan. And I was like, that doesn't match with what I thought a vegan was at all. And so I started to flirt with that idea. I read his book, drilled down. I bought Scott Jurick's book, drilled down into his book. I was like, Then I bought Rich Roll's book called Finding Ultra. And Rich's story really resonated with me. Failed college athlete, alcoholic, substance abuser, had a career going, had an income, but his body was just coming apart at the seams because he was really abusing it with food. That was me. Even though I was losing weight, I was still misbehaving terribly with food. And so that really started to change my mindset. Because I was in love with running now, I wanted to be a better runner. And so now it was time for me to really address my nutrition. It just became, as I said earlier, you got to remember, now I'm my own case study. So I've identified something that requires a behavior change to take the next step. And even though it was a ballsy move, and even though it was difficult here, I decided to just go plant-based. It wasn't clean at all. It was a bunch of veggie burgers and a bunch of vegan junk food in the beginning. But even that vegan junk food step, compared to what I was doing, was a hell of a lot better. It was a great step in the right direction. And so I really started to see improvement there, right? And signed up for that first half marathon in late 2013. Got that thing done, but I was kind of disappointed. I didn't quite break 2 hours. Signed up for another one in just like 3 or 4 weeks after that. Got 158 in that one. And now what's happening is I'm falling in love with not just running, but progress within running, which lent itself to me chasing progress everywhere else. Like, as far as the mindset of empathy and compassion and wanting better health, not just weight loss, not just athletic performance, but overall health, right? And so now I'm chasing better. This idea of chasing down better is starting to crystallize and become an identity in and of itself. The identity was big beer drinking, back slapping, deer killing, coon ass ex-football player has been. That was the identity. Now I can still embrace a lot of the things about my hardworking background and my Cajun identity and move it forward and chase progress for something different. And so now I'm starting to really fall in love with running. And by this time I've fallen into a run group, Louisiana Run Company in New Orleans, and I'm finding friends, and I'm wanting to, like, for lack of a better term, show off to my buddies, like, hey, look what I did. I got another PR. And that's kind of how it started, and it started really growing. So in 2014, did my first, late 2013, Rich Roll, because I tweeted to Rich Roll, and I said, hey, man, you made me think this was possible. Just FYI. And I sent him a before and after that second half marathon. And he was blown away. He put it on his Facebook page, and he messaged me and said, dude, that is the most popular thing I've ever posted on my Facebook page. You blew up my Facebook page with that before and after. I want you on my podcast. And here I was, after I read his book, all these training runs, I had been listening to the Rich Roll podcast. And here I am. It's like this surreal moment. Like, I'm about to be a Rich Roll podcast guest. Wow. What else is possible? And so he interviewed me right before my very first full marathon effort, which was 2014. Got that done. And then the Crescent City Classic comes around in April of 2014. Now, I'm sort of harboring the desire to become a top 500 finisher at the Crescent City Classic, which wins you a special commemorative poster, which is a big deal here. You want a postered finish. That's a cool thing. And so I found out what sort of speed I needed to do, and I started working towards that. and I ran that third Crescent City Classic in 43 minutes and 8 seconds. And I was like, wow, I'm becoming a runner. I'm becoming a fast runner. And so that identity is like fully engulfed me by that point, right? And then I move on. I go run the New York City Marathon later on that year, and broke 4 hours in the marathon for the first time. Did 3:48 in that one. And then 2015, my first ultra marathon. I got kind of peer pressured into that by my running friends, and we did a 50K out and back on the beach in Destin, Florida. And it hurt me so bad, and it made me cry from mile 28 all the way to the finish. I wanted to quit, but I had to get back to the finish line to quit, honestly. If they had came by with a golf cart and said, hey, we're picking up quitters, I'd have been like, hey, move over. I'm in, baby. And so, but because it made me want to quit so bad, I wanted to get even with that distance. And so then all of 2015, I was just doing ultra marathon after ultra marathon, really sort of buying into the idea of being an ultra marathoner. And at the same time, still desiring faster and faster road marathons. So I'm working on my road PR as I'm becoming an ultra marathoner. In late 2015, I did my first 100K. So I went from a 50K to 100K by the end of the year. And a crazy thing happened at that point. I came in third. I was just trying to finish, but I came in third place. And I was like, wow, what if I'm not just trying to finish? What if I take the same approach that I take in trying to PR these road marathons in bigger distances? And so early 2016, I'd signed up for a 50-mile race in early 2016, and I took my marathon approach to that 50-mile race. And lo and behold, in mile 40 of that race, I wound up catching the leader, putting him behind me, and I wound up putting like 15 minutes on him before we finished the race. And I mean, I won.
That's
the
crazy,
race. And I was like, here I am. Makes me want to cry right now. I cried like a baby. Because not only did I win, I have all these memories of being this big fat guy. And my grandfather, who had been a big, heavy guy my whole life and had heart disease and now suffers from dementia because of the heart disease. And not only the heart disease and the lack of blood flow to the brain, but because of the pharmaceuticals related with having heart disease. And so he was there with me at that 50-mile race. And it was 4-mile loops. And he watched me all day long climb through and take the lead. It was amazing. And by this point, my grandfather is now a plant-based guy. My whole family's plant-based, waiting for me at the finish line of this 50-mile race. My grandfather's 165 pounds lighter, right? At 80 plus years old, he's lost 160 pounds.
That's crazy.
And completely reversed his heart disease. His dementia, the horses left the barn on that stuff. That you can't reverse that. But the progression has really slowed to a crawl of his dementia. But he's there with me. And it was like this big culmination of feelings, like it's full circle. We go from frying everything and drinking beer and whiskey and really being totally gluttonous and disrespecting this vessel that the universe has bestowed upon us, to here we are, his grandson, he's lighter, 165 pounds lighter, sitting at the finish line of a 50-mile race, and his former morbidly obese grandson is winning it. And he doesn't remember much, right? But that day, when I walked up to him and shook his hand, he cried. And he was like, you did good. You won. I don't know how you did it. You've been running all day. I don't know how you do that, Mm-hmm. And he knew what was happening. He knew how big of a deal it was. And so from that moment on, it's just, I'm locked in, baby. I'm locked in, right? And so I win a 50-mile race, and immediately what pops up in my head is the ultimate distance in ultra marathoning is the 100-miler. It's time to do a hundo, baby. We're going to sign up for a hundo. And so that's what I do. But in the meantime, it's like I still want to do my fast marathons. So about a month after the 50 miler in 2016, so just last year, I ran my fastest marathon. I came in without really a whole lot of marathon training under my belt. I just had that 50-mile training. So my base was huge at that time. Go into that marathon, run sub 325. The goal for me was to get in under 330. I was giving myself a little break because I knew that I hadn't really marathon trained. So I kind of gauged my expectations and lowered my expectations. I said, hey, if we get in under 330, that's a win, baby. That's awesome. That's a very fast marathon. Wound up actually catching up to a guy in 24 who happened to be a Rich Roll podcast fan and knew who I was. And he paced me into the finish line. And I came in under 325. We did 324.45. We basically raced each other. And he said it was an honor to him to be. It's like, what are the odds, right? You know, it was just so cool. I ran past him with my No Meat Athlete shirt on. And then he was like, whoa. He figured out who I was. And he caught back up to me. And he told me that he was honored to meet me and everything. And he's a huge Rich Roll podcast fan. And he loved my interview with Rich Roll and all of that stuff. And so we just ran step for step and just dug. And I was able to not only get in under 330, but get in under 325. And the rest of that year, I spent thinking about which 100-miler I was going to do. And then so I picked a 100-miler in Florida in September. And I went and I ran that 100-miler. And it was a 2.5-mile loop. And so I ran a 2.5-mile loop 40 times. It got really hot that day, up to 104 degrees with the heat index, very high humidity day. And but I wound up, my goal was to get in under 24 hours. And at mile 85, I had some problems in the early 80s, but I started to kind of get it together at mile 85. And I was able to negative split from 85 all the way down to 100. Mile 100 wound up being my very fastest mile. And I actually ran a 7:03 split in that last part of my 100-miler. Actually came in third place overall in that. And it was just like another amazing moment. Here I am. I'm blown away. Not only all of that, but I'm doing stuff like this. I mean, you guys are halfway around the planet and you care about who Josh Lajaunie is. It's amazing to me. All of these serendipitous things have come from me doing something as selfish as wanting to make me the best version of me humanly possible. So that has accidentally brought me to, as a pragmatist, whole food, plant-based fuel and running as an authentic human form of exertion. Those two things have brought me all kinds of other connections in life from people like you guys who I identify with. It's just been the most amazing journey. And here I am in late 2016. I throw my hat in the ring for this competition to be on the cover of Runner's World magazine. And lo and behold, I win. And now I'm on the cover of the December issue of the very magazine that helped me understand that I should take up running as a way to make my body fit and healthy and more, a better way to lose fat, along the way. It's just been the most surreal thing. And that's why I'm running the Rock and Roll Marathon in Liverpool, England in next month, because that's part of the prize was to pick a rock and roll marathon anywhere in the world I wanted to go. And so it just worked out for me. May was great schedule wise. England there's no language barrier for me, although they probably won't understand what I'm saying anyway. And I probably won't understand, even though we speak in the same English, my accent would probably blow their mind. But we're gonna go. I think we can make it shake. And so what better way for me to honor running and what running has brought to my life and my family's life? My whole family as a whole has lost about 900 pounds in this process. Everyone has decided to hop on board with me and become plant-based. My brother's plant-based, my sister-in-law's plant-based, my wife, mother-in-law, dad now, my sister and brother-in-law, everybody is on board with this thing. What better way for me to honor plants and running by going across the pond and spilling my guts on the streets in Liverpool, England, and winning a ticket to go to Boston, to go from being a 400+ pound guy to a Boston qualifying marathoner, something I could have never imagined in my life. Yet here I am on the precipice of achieving that. And it's like, it's just been the most amazing journey, guys. I don't know how else to couch it to you guys. And I could have never planned it. I could have never said back then, hey, here's what we're going to do. 5 years, I want to go to Liverpool and Boston qualify. It's been about the micro. It's been about the little steps and the commitment to perpetual progress along the way, and being pragmatic about that, and not getting caught up in the minutia of all of the different things, the cellular specificity in nutrition. It's very, very simple. We zoom up, take the 30,000 foot view of this thing. Let's zoom out and let's eat whole plant-based foods without any man-made stuff, okay? And let's eat those things and keep in mind the concept of a natural attainable quantity of those things for the human animal, right? And that's simple. You can do that. Naturally attainable quantities of whole plant-based foods. And then you don't have to worry about all the minutiae. Just do that general thing and get up and move your ass like a wild human would do across the plains of Africa with his feet. Put those things in balance, bam, you have a fit, healthy, lean machine. You know what I mean? You guys know. You're doing it.
What an incredible journey, my friend. You really walked us through every single step of the way, and my goodness, there's so much emotion from you, from the way you deliver your story, and we really feel it across the world. And I mean, kudos to you, man. I mean, everyone listening out there is going to be extremely inspired by this. Like, there's obviously some guy out there that's listening, or some girl out there that's listening, that's probably doubting themselves where you were before shuffling your belt. What have you got to say to that person?
Just believe you can, and do. Even if it's the wrong damn thing. Do something and get a result and adjust the behavior based on the result. But the main thing is do. Don't try to prefigure out everything before you do any doing. Do the doing and let the doing tell you if it's wrong or right. You'll come to the same conclusions as me if you're being a pragmatic person. You'll come to the same conclusions. I am confident. So whatever the protocol is, however wrong we think it is, do it. Don't contemplate. Get up and do it, and let the results dictate your necessary behavior changes going forward. Come with us. It's a beautiful, the water is warm. The water is nice. Come on in, baby.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, it's so inspirational. Really touched by you also sharing all the emotion, and your family losing, was it 900
That's
pounds?
crazy,
that might
my friend.
be the best thing I've ever heard. And also, I mean, obviously you shared it very enthusiastically, but there must have been points along the journey where it was just tough.
Doubted yourself,
and you might have doubted yourself.
Virtually daily, I still doubt myself. That's not really you don't get over that. The fact is, you need that. You need it. That will sharpen you, because if you have those doubts and then you win those fight throughs and prove those doubts wrong, you are making yourself like anti-fragile. You follow? You are making yourself a robust creature that is strong and can exist in any environment. You don't need the perfect set of circumstances to manifest your success. The self-doubt is good. Overcoming it, noticing it, let it be what it is. Let it hurt. Let it be confusing. Let it be awkward. Walk through it anyway, like a beast. Word. And you'll go forward. You'll make yourself stronger for having won those fight throughs. I don't say we even need to endure those things. What we need to do is seek them, because that's where the growth happens. We need to look at them right in the eye and call them out. And so it's not a smooth curve. You're absolutely right. Just like I said, along the way, I was doing some things wrong. I started this whole thing with the low carb, high protein protocol. And of course, I lost weight, but I also felt bad. But it let me still eat lots of steak and bacon and cheese. So I was losing weight. For me at the time, weight loss was the only result that I cared about. It wasn't until I implemented running that I started to see a need for change, you see? And so just go in and do something. If you think we're wrong, okay, do the thing that you think is right. But make a change and be pragmatic and honest about the results that change is manifesting in your life.
Indeed, it's just about making that first step and just being consistent with it. I'm really, really keen, because I heard a podcast a while back about you explaining about the new norm. I would love to know the whole concept of what the new norm is, and the norm that you were before, and maybe a lot of people are, and where you are right now. What's that whole concept about?
Right. Well, norm or identity, because so you identify with what you think normal is. For me in my life, normal was being a big guy who had conceded to being an athletic has-been. So I was always talking about how I used to be, right, as far as an athlete, and being a person who could drink you under the table, and I could cook circles around anybody. I could make the best ribs and the best burgers and the best jambalaya and the best gumbo, and I did all of that stuff, right? So that was my normal. That's my identity. That's where my comfort zone. That's where I was, right? And then slowly but surely, almost accidentally, as I wanted, because deep down inside, almost a secret, I wasn't happy with being fat. I wasn't happy every time I passed the mirror. I would stand in the mirror and grab my belly with both arms, and my belly would be hanging over my arms, and I would just look at myself in the eye, and my face, my complexion would be bad. My eyes would have dark circles. You know, it's not just about fat. You are very unhealthy. The body is screaming out to you, let's do something different. And it wasn't until I started to make those small changes and move towards a different idea that I started to, in retrospect, I see it this way now, adopt one little new normal at a time. That was a normal for me. Now this is a normal for me. I hated running before. Now I'm okay with running. Now I'm okay with running as my new norm. But now I think I might like running, right? That's a new norm now. Now, not only do I like running, I identify as a runner. That's a new norm. Not only do I identify as a runner, now I'm identifying as an aggressive, competitive athlete, right? And so it's all about changing what you consider normal and giving those new normals the time to sort of develop some sensory adaptation inside, whether that's food, right? So if I make a change in my food, so getting rid of meat was huge for me. That was my whole life. So getting rid of meat was huge for me. So that 30 days, it was emotional for me. It was different. I felt like I was turning my back on my culture. It wasn't just about the way a big juicy steak tastes or a slab of bacon tastes. It was bigger than that. It was about what I grew up knowing how to do. My grandfather taught me how to get the heat really, really hot and throw the ribeye on there and sear it off and flip it just at the perfect time to get it perfectly medium rare and have a good crusty outside. Like, it was this thing that my people taught me how to do. It wasn't just about how it tasted. right? So I had to give that new thing some soak time, if you will, to become a new normal. And along the way, I've read people like Dr. Doug Lisle. I don't know if you guys know who Dr. Doug Lisle is. I'm sure you do.
The pleasure trap.
And that pleasure trap concept really sat with me when I understood, okay, like here's normal, and then we do hyperpalatable, and then hyperpalatable becomes the new normal. So we changing new normals all the time. We make a new normal to something less healthy. So I've used in my talk before the example of a piece of broccoli, right? So we take this normal, just a regular raw piece of broccoli, and that's in the normal pleasure zone. Then we enhance it saute it with butter and garlic and bacon fat or whatever. And now that pleasure from that same morsel of food has been enhanced. But over a passage of time, that pleasurable, hyperpalatable thing becomes the norm. And when we go back to regular broccoli because we watch Forks Over Knives, or we read something by Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, or we learn some new stuff about nutrition, and so we decide to go back to that raw normal piece of broccoli. Now we're down here. That broccoli, when we go back to healthy, it's no longer normal in the normal zone. It's in the subnormal pleasure zone, and it's terrible. It tastes like ass. It's not good. But it's because we're consciously or subconsciously, our mouth is comparing it to what our new normal is, right? And so we have to, this is the biggest thing I learned from Dr. Doug Lisle, was we have to give the body, whether it's the mind or the physical mouth, the palate, whatever, whether it's your legs when you're moving forward in your speed training and trying to build, we have to give time for that new normal to set in, for some sensory adaptation to really take hold. If we keep going back as a cheat to the hyperpalatable thing, that we never let that new normal happen. You feel me? And so it's a very, very important concept to me to constantly be consciously, with some purpose, changing your normal to a normal that is going to manifest that more authentic version of yourself. That's because your authentic human version of yourself is not diseased, it is not overweight, and it is not unhappy. We're meant to be healthy, happy, fit creatures. The idea that it's some sort of a choice to be an athlete, or like, oh, well, it's good that thing works for you or whatever. No, I think it's a mandate for the human being to be athletic. That's what we are in our default. We needed to be able to cover ground. We needed to be able to find new places for our family, or move when the conditions get poor in this area, and move over to this area, or explore and find new territory. I think about the Polynesians having the guts to get in canoes and just go where you can't see land. You just going over yonder, and you know what I'm saying? So that is within us, and we call it training today. But back then it was just living. We had to be athletes to be alive, and that's how we've evolved to be. That's the authentic version of our human selves, is an athlete. So it's not just some sort of a choice or something. I think it's a mandate as a human being to seek that athleticism that will lend itself to our overall authenticity and health. Fast forwarding this nutrient-rich blood, when you're on a plant-based diet especially, fast forwarding that nutrient-rich blood to all of its tissue, to all of the tissues in your body and the brain cells and everything that's happening, to pump that heart and force fresh nutrients throughout that body. Man, that's a beautiful compliment. Only do that through physical exertion, right? And so that's part of our normal movement protocol as human beings. So it's not about becoming an athlete or becoming vegan or losing weight. What it's about is being an authentic human animal, identifying what that is and purposely shoehorning that into our very unnatural man-made existence today, pragmatically, on purpose, you know? And so that's how you create a new normal that manifests massive turnaround like has happened in my life. You dig?
Yeah, fascinating. Also, you mentioned that the man-made nature nowadays might not be the authentic version of how we used to be, right? But
Sure.
how, especially in your situation, coming from your Louisiana backgrounds and I guess having a very close social network, how do you deal with comments or people asking you back to parties? And obviously, you're gonna break any norms that exist in your society.
Yeah, sure. I actually relish those moments. I take pride because it's an opportunity. It's not something for me to endure and like hang my head and hide my face about and go, oh, don't pick on me. I take those times as an opportunity to be an example to dudes and ladies that I love very much, that are my people. They're from the same place. We lead the nation in heart disease, in obesity, in diabetes, in cancer, right? And we are good people, Louisianans. Why the hell are we signing up for this, right? So again, I actually relish the opportunity to abstain in when I'm at a crawfish boil or at a Mardi Gras party or at a boucherie or at a barbecue. I actually look forward to those opportunities because then people go, wow, Josh has lost 200 pounds here. So I know because I thought this way, Josh lost 200 pounds. He could afford to eat a plate of fried fish and he's still not doing it. And that, whether they want to admit it or not, at least on a subconscious level, plants a seed about what's necessary to make the change, right? And so I look forward to the opportunities where I'm in these difficult situations socially. Because it's inevitably, it leads to questions. People are like, hey, so what is it that you do? And so we have a conversation. I don't need to bring it to you. The way I live my life is so loud and in the open and very, very bright. So people notice and they'll come to me and say, so what is it that you're doing? Give me an idea. How do you eat breakfast? What's the deal? And we'll talk. They may change, they may not change, but the information is there, and I am on guard all the time, ready to help, right? And so that's how I make these socially awkward situations that could be very socially awkward and very, they could have a deterring effect and make it feel like I'm white knuckling it through life, but instead I actually relish them, seek them, look forward to them. It goes back to exactly what we were talking about with mindset and talking about how I look forward to those self-doubt situations. I look forward to these for the same reason, to make myself anti-fragile to the norms that exist all around me, right? And so the norms that exist all around me are manifesting certain results. We cannot deny the fact that we lead the nation and the world in heart disease and obesity and cancer and diabetes. You can ignore that fact if you want, but it's going to catch up to you. So we really that is an empirical set of data that is factual, right? What are the behaviors manifesting that? I am a living example of how to completely turn it around. And so I'm proud to be in a situation that makes me stand out like a sore thumb, if you will, because I stand out like a sore thumb in a good way, in my opinion. And so I'm helping to plant seeds, even subconsciously, in all of these people that I care about and love on the Bayou and in New Orleans and at Saints games, at tailgate parties or whatever, whether they listen or not. They'll see Josh doing his thing 100% of the time. And that's important to me. And that's my purpose. And so there's no I don't worry about it. It's like a calling almost, if you will, and it's a way for me to be the change, right? To be the change I would like to see in my people, right? So I take it on. I enjoy it, actually, and that's just a mindset thing.
It sure is. I mean, from where you were before to where you are now, articulate and inspiring. Like, what are you doing right now? I understand that you're helping your community and you're speaking in your community. So what's the impact of your change in Louisiana and where you are right now?
Right. Well, we see, like, I'm a dude that marches to the beat of a different drum, right? But there's been some people, and I can't take credit for it. I don't ever want to take credit for it. But there have been a lot of people that have started to feel that rhythm of that drum and started to either tap their foot to it or dance all the way the same way I do with it. And that really makes me feel good. It really makes me feel good. I have some really good friends who I have just told them about where I've gotten my information and sent them there, and then they go through that information themselves and go, well, damn, I can't shoot any holes in that. Why am I not doing it that way, right? And so I do have some very good friends who have come completely on board with the plant-based lifestyle, and that makes me feel really good. I haven't done any sort of a potluck or anything like that here on the Bayou yet, but that's next. I'm going to do something like that. I would like to do something free, like to do something for people, not just in the city of New Orleans, but I want to do something for people like on the Bayou, in the swamp, in Chack Bay, the people who would never get this information on purpose, and they might hear me and know me because I grew up with them, and it might give me a chance to explain something that they may not give Luke Tan, right? They may not give you the time of the day that they'll give me. And so it gives me an opportunity to say, hey, try my beans and rice. What's wrong with this? Why you can't eat like this, right? While you're eating your beans and rice, here, watch what's eating you. Watch Forks Over Knives. Watch What the Health, right? Let's do, and then the information, boom, it's yours. Do with it what you desire. I'm not here to be your daddy. I just want to be a voice of reason. We're dying in our 50s for no reason. My dad's younger brother died at 38 years old, 3 kids and a wife. Wow. Heart attack at work. That happens a lot here. And it's not some magic wand that God is punishing Louisiana with. It's very identifiable how and why this is happening to my people, right?
Yeah. So looking at your story, you said when you started out running and working out, you were still on a somewhat normal diet, standard American diet, was it? So if you were to do something different today, how would you do it again?
Somebody starting out, I would recommend to read. I would recommend a couple of steps. Read Born to Run. I think it's an amazing book. There's an audio book. You can understand that the human being is a bipedal animal. Embrace that movement protocol for this animal. Put in a audio book, go for a walk, finish Born to Run, understand how you don't have to run right away. Start wherever you are and grow forward from there. But I would recommend listen to Born to Run and very simply watch Forks Over Knives. That is undeniable. Do those two things and let that sink in. Let that marinate for a little while. Even if you don't make changes at first, once you know those things, you can't unknow them, right? So do those, let those bleed into the brain for a little while, and plant that seed and start moving in that direction. We want to raise the heart rate. We want to sweat a little bit. If you're not doing those two things, go faster. If that requires a run out of you, fine. If it requires a fast-paced walk out of you, fine. But the thing is we want to do it on purpose and with some purpose. Simple.
Awesome. I think that's a great note to end off. You really walked us through this whole adventure of yours, and we're honored to be a part of it, my friend. Absolutely honored.
I'm honored that you guys are interested in I'm honored to be a part of anything that is helping this movement grow forward. Because, dude, literally, we can change the world. No other human generation has really had that power. With the way that the very liquid nature of knowledge this day and age, due to technology and things like what the medium you and I are talking on right now, our generation is literally, on the precipice of changing the world for the good for a change. We've been doing it for worse and worse and worse since we've developed,
Industrialized.
The industrialized, normal human society, right? So we are very uniquely positioned to flip it all. And to be part of that, man, I mean, whether it happens in my lifetime or not, to know that I was part of the solution and not part of the problem, boom, my life has meant something. Word?
Word. There we go.
Word, baby.
Right now, right here, we're all built for change, and it's going to change. And it's going to start with you.
World, baby.
All the best.
Same to y'all, man. Nice meeting you, brother.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So much. We hope you've got a lot of value and inspiration from this presentation. For live Q&As and updates on the summit, join our Facebook group. You'll find the link below. Our goal is to reach 1 million people and help them become plant-fit inspirations in their communities. We believe that the right food and exercise can change your life, inspire those around you, and save the planet. Feel the same? Then check out our Plant Fit for Life package. Click the button below for more information and incredible bonuses by our experts. This is Toby and Luke signing off from the Plant Fit Summit, and see you for the next presentation.